Welcome, beautiful people, and welcome back to my channel. Today, I wanted to ask you, how exactly is it that whenever you look at someone's face, you get an impression of them? How is it that, have you ever wondered when you get to befriend or meet someone new and you stick with them for a while, and then that impression that first came up to you turns out to be right, and you're actually, they gave me the right impression. I was right about that. Or when you have a bad impression about someone, you have a bad feeling, and it turns out that person has done exactly something unpredictable, but something about their face just made sense, something that you can't quite put into words why they gave you that certain vibe, but it just made sense for them to do that kind of ugly thing. Well, that's because we, all of us as people, face read at the most subconscious level. We look at other people's faces and we determine based on their features whether or not they're reliable. We have been trained since birth, since this is something that comes almost as instinct in our nature, to determine in 2 seconds, in a glimpse of 2 seconds, whether or not someone is reliable. So when we look at someone and we try to sum them up, we actually get an impression based on how they really are, because this is called face reading, assessing one's features, assessing one's personality through their features, because this is an art that has been around for really long, for a really, really long time, for centuries, 2,000 years ago. And we're going to cover the history of face reading and how exactly did it develop as a pseudoscience, and where it has been used, and how exactly were people using it in their daily lives, and how often would they meet with it. It originated in China. It was called Miangxiang, and before Christ, the birth of Christ, 2,000 years ago. So people like scholars, officials, and emperors would make their decisions on marriage, on compatibility, on business partnerships, and political appointments based on face reading, on physiognomy, on Miangxiang, that would help them as a tool to assess one's true nature. Face reading was frequently used in life path and faith, in matchmaking, in compatibility, in health diagnosis. It was used in spiritual and philosophical disputes. It was so often back then that people would use this art in order to determine one's character beneath what they were trying to face as a behavior on the facade. Now, physiognomists, this face reading, Miangxiang, was something that it was taught from a really young age. How exactly was that? Well, people had different technologies back then. They wouldn't rely on digital screens or knowledge from the internet. They had no internet back then. So they would rely on their own instincts, on nature, on things that they had a much more developed intuition back then, because they did not have distractions that would steal away their attention from what really matters in one's life. Relationships were so much stronger back then. Bonds, people would interact at a much more deep level back then. And that can be seen as a big difference throughout history. In opposition, in contrast with how things are currently. But that's something else. So, face reading, there's even this technique, a Taoist technique called the 5 elements, which consists on the element fire, earth, metal, water, and wood, where these elements can be seen in one's face as a face reading technique. So there are certain types of traits in elements that can determine for a certain dynamic for each element. But we're going to talk about that in another video. Let's get back to how face reading was used in life path and faith. People would often look at each other and determine whether or not they would have certain beliefs. On health and diagnosis, Chinese people would come with a very smart system for face reading. So there's this thing where there's literally a map on your face that determines the health your organs are currently in. For example, for each face feature, like the tip of the nose, the cheeks, the cheekbones, the mouth, and the chin, all of these would be directly correlated with different organs. And the quality, where the skin would get brighter or darker, or where wrinkles would appear on one's face, or where there would be more redness, that would mean something about the quality of each organ. They would be able to diagnose through this method whether or not someone would be more prone to certain conditions, because that liver would be affected and that would show on the face. So this was on face reading and its history, and I hope you liked today's video. Please subscribe and like this video. It would mean a lot to me, and it would help a lot with the channel's growth. It would help me keep motivated to keep on making these videos and teach more on face reading, because it's not just a tool for guidance, it's also my passion. And it would not just help, but it would be amazing for me to be able to help others through my videos and give them and talk more broadly about these concepts and how it applies to day-to-day life. So please take that into account when you're treating this video, giving this video the treatment it deserves. So thank you so much for your attention. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time with another piece of knowledge. So see you soon.